Hello, thanks for listening to the Finance Leadership Podcast, your fortnightly focus on the latest information and news about the Finance Leadership Programme pathway to your CGMA qualification. It's produced by AICPA and CIMA, together as the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. You can find out more at aicpa.org and cimaglobal.com. I'm Kevin Gormley, and I've been featured in previous podcasts speaking to professionals in all different areas regarding the Finance Leadership Programme. This week, I'm very lucky to be joined by Clancy Peiris, one of my colleagues at the association. And today we're going to talk about the case study exams. So Clancy, welcome to the podcast. And if you wouldn't mind giving yourself a quick introduction, letting the listeners know who you are and what you do within the association.
Sure. Thanks, Kevin, for having me for this podcast first. My name is Clancy Peiris, a senior manager working in the academic study support team for the CIMA and the association. Amongst several responsibilities, student progression stands out. So this involves designing and implementing study support literature and study support events addressing the key progression blockers.
Could you maybe give us a quick introduction and talk a little about the CGMA case study exams themselves?
Yes, Kevin. CGMA case study exams are designed to test the candidate's ability to deal with work-based tasks and challenges in a realistic context. So therefore, CGMA case study exams are designed to assess good technical understanding of the topic being tested and also application of this technical understanding to the business and the practical scenario within the task or the question set by the examiner. Therefore, the examiner would love to see candidates demonstrate clear and comprehensive explanation of their professional judgment in the application of the syllabus content. Therefore, examiners have instructed the markers to adopt a holistic approach to marking. That means that the answer to each subtask is read and judged on its merits.
Okay, so within the Finance Leadership Programme itself, obviously, students will have completed a level of learning in terms of the competencies. And at that point, they will then utilise the case study review course, or if you're on skills premium within the programme, you'll attend the Kaplan-led live classes. But in your view, where is the best place to start with preparing for these case study exams?
As I mentioned before, the assessment strategy of CGMA case study exams is employment-driven. Therefore, to understand the examine expectations at each level, I would say a useful place we may start with is the level-specific role simulation, or in our day-to-day language, we call it the persona within the examination's blueprint. The simulation is made up of three broad parts. Firstly, the role of finance. Secondly, the role simulated. And thirdly, the job task simulated. This simulation will require the candidates to demonstrate that they have acquired the knowledge, skills, and also the mindset of the CGMA finance professional. For instance, in the CGMA operational case study exams, the role simulated is that of an entry-level finance professional. We call him, for example purposes, a finance officer who is responsible for planning and coordinating business operations through the preparation of budgets and other reports. Therefore, within each operational case study exam, there are 6 core activities that will be assessed. These core activities represent the tasks that are most frequent, critical, and important to the entry-level finance professional role. The same goes with the management and strategic case study exams. We can find all information in the exam's blueprint for each level.
Okay, so I think that's a pertinent piece of advice is from my experience dealing with students, a lot of students are not fully aware of the blueprints and the value they bring to the overall understanding and approach for the exam. So I guess just to reiterate, make sure everyone's aware of the blueprints and to give them the full read and review and really understand what their purpose is. So in terms of insights from an examiner's perspective, what are the common mistakes and what do examiners really expect from students? Could you maybe give your view from your experience, and what are the key things that students need to impress upon the examiner, and obviously what things should they avoid at all costs?
I think it is really important to understand what examiner is expecting from us, and also perhaps the common mistakes, if you like, the candidates do in exams. Now, firstly, let me remind that CGMA case study exams are designed to challenge the candidates to provide solutions to the type of problems that they would encounter in the workplace. Therefore, the case study exam uses a simulated case study to provide a rich, immersive scenario to prepare and to provide a context for the tasks in the examination. The scenarios are developed around today's modern business environment and the challenges that candidates will face, allowing them to demonstrate the core activities that employers have identified as critical in the business world today. Therefore, the CGMA exam tasks, or if you like, the questions, will be practical and applied, not just theoretical or academic. So I can identify the top 5 expectations of the examiners in the CGMA case study exam answers. Firstly, your answer should be relevant to the question requirement. Secondly, you are expected to demonstrate the necessary technical knowledge of the syllabus content. The third expectation is you should be able to demonstrate your ability to apply that technical knowledge to a specific scenario as specified in the case. The fourth examine expectation is that your answer be well structured. That means using good paragraphs to clarify the development of an explanation of each point that you provide. And finally, the examiner expects your answer to contain justification of the arguments made in the answer. So these are the top 5 expectations of the examiner. When I analyze the examiner reports that we publish after each CGMA case study exam, I can see that there are 4 common recurring mistakes identified by the examiners. The first mistake is the examiner says candidates have failed to answer the question that was asked. I'll explain this a little more in detail later. Secondly, the examiner says candidates demonstrate limited technical ability. That is, there are gaps in the knowledge or understanding of the technical knowledge. The third common mistake examiner has identified is candidates provided insufficient justification for arguments. So obviously that is related to examiner expectation, which I mentioned before. And finally, candidates have failed to reflect the scenario or the specifics of the organization and the environment applicable to the environment. So these are the 5 expectations of the examiner, and these are the 4 common errors I can see from the examiner reports.
These all ring bells with me from speaking with employers and students for over the last decade, where students don't fully immerse themselves in the case study and really get into the role and justify and reason to the expectation of an examiner. I think that's one of the key things people need to remember. Is one of the main things that a case study assesses is the ability to communicate, to reason, to justify, which you cannot do in an objective test or a topic level assessment on FLP, for example. So this is a way for us as a professional body to assess those skill sets that you cannot do through any other assessment model. So really important things to remember there. Another thing, Clancy, just to touch on from my experience, and you mentioned about structuring your answer. Again, very irrelevant, because something that looks good on screen and is easy to read is actually usually read by more people. So from my experience, people would have always suggested, a third in terms of time allocation. So a third reading and preparation, a third articulation in terms of getting it on the page, typed, answered, and then a third of review, tidy up. and to make the answer the best it can be. Would you agree that that's a sort of time frame in terms of allocation for a typical case study question?
Yes, that is the general guidance that we can provide. Perhaps the candidates may vary between that 1/3 rule, but the paramount importance here is that we need to allocate adequate time to read the question, understand the question. Otherwise, we won't be able to answer the question exactly asked by the examiner. So answer planning is very important, and that automatically addresses the time planning and time management, because each task is time restricted. That means each question should be answered within the time provided. So that planning is an absolute necessity.
So in your opinion, what's the most critical determinant of passing a CGMA case study exam from CIMA?
To me, there are 5 critical success factors in achieving a passing score in a CGMA case study exam. I will try to explain one by one very briefly. The first critical success factor is complete and up-to-date technical knowledge. The CGMA case study exams are capstone examinations designed to demonstrate mastery of previously acquired knowledge, skills, and techniques, and the drawing together of these to provide solutions to unstructured business problems. So by their precision and design, CGMA case study exams are synoptic. This means each case study exam combines the content covered in the 3 pillar subjects at the level into a single case study assessment. Therefore, key to achieving a passing score is to ensure that you have the technical knowledge and understanding of all of the syllabus topics included in each of the core activities that we can find in the exam blueprints. Now, the second critical success factor is application skills. You are expected to be able to apply your technical knowledge and understanding within the case study context. Simply reproducing rote learned answers or pure knowledge of a topic area will score very few or no marks sometimes. I'm happy to quote the CGMA case study examiner here on this matter. Demonstrating good technical understanding is not enough on its own to pass. You need to demonstrate technical understanding in the context of the scenario and the particulars of the issue being addressed. Information given to candidates as part of the task is there for a reason and should be, as far as possible, incorporated into answers along with relevant information from the pre-scene. Application to the scenario is key to achieving a passing score, unquote. These are the very words of the examiner regarding the importance of application skills. The third critical success factor is pre-scene analysis and industry awareness. Again, if I use examiner's very words here, the examiners say, to produce a good case study exam answer, you must have analyzed the pre-scene material in depth. Ensure that you are very familiar with the business, especially the financial information, before the exam, as this will help you with applying your knowledge and will save you time. Similarly, an awareness of the industry that the business is in will help you to think of the wider issues that might impact on decisions that you could be asked to comment on, unquote. So it is important to stress here that you are not expected to remember all what is in the pre-scene. Instead, remembering the key themes of the pre-scene will be enough, and it will be helpful in the real exam. The fourth critical success factor is to do exactly what examiner asks you to do. The single most common complaint from examiners across all 3 levels is that candidates have failed to answer the question that was asked. there's a whole range of different ways of not answering a question. Many students are determined to prove how much they have learned that may lead to ignoring the question. Some other students answer only part of the question, even though the examiner may have required several things to be done in order to get full marks. Also, some students answer the question they hoped would be there rather than the one that actually is. So any of these will make it almost impossible to obtain a passing score. Another very common reason for getting poor scores within the case study exam lies in misinterpreting or misunderstanding exactly what is asked for. The question requirements in most of the CGMA case study exams are in conversational language. Therefore, your understanding of the role simulation, the core activities, and the course learning objectives will be extremely helpful to interpret and understand exactly what the examiner expects in your answer. Right. The fifth critical success factor is to produce an answer within the time allowed, because each task or each question is time restricted, as I mentioned before. Now, this is where answer planning really matters. If you thought answer planning is a waste of time, I would say it is a destructive myth. Let me quickly tell you key benefits of answer planning, especially in the CGMA case study examinations. Answer planning guides on question deconstruction and interpretation. As a result, it allows you to articulate answer in line with the exact question requirement as set by the examiner. Further, answer planning checks your answering each subtask in the required amount of depth, importantly. So it ensures you are not misread a question. Importantly, answer planning allows you to prioritize your points and to systematically sense check and logic check the strength and validity of each point that you provide in your answer. Another benefit is answer planning provides the structure mentioned earlier. It gives you the words to use for your subheadings in the answer. Finally, answer planning provides you with a systematic coping mechanism, if you like, for questions which appear challenging at first glance. Sometimes when you read the question, we don't know where to start, what to write. So this will ensure you have got enough points at the outset. And even if not, if you don't get enough points at the very outset, you can take the points you have got and add depth to them and match to the allocated marks. So you can now see the importance of answer planning and how it aids time planning and time management in the CGMA case study exams. In producing answers, examiners really love to see. So just to summarize, the 5 critical success factors in passing score in a CGMA case study exam are: 1, complete and up-to-date technical knowledge; 2, application skills; 3, the pre-scene analysis and industry awareness; 4, do exactly what examiner asks you to do; and finally, 5, produce an answer within the time allowed.
Great. Thanks, Clancy. I think there's some really good insight and information and guidance there for students and for those potentially considering starting the qualification or on their journey to doing so. Take all of that on board. It's so critical to passing the case study first time. And that's what we want for our students. So we're going to wrap it up at this point. Clancy, again, thanks for your useful guidance and information there. I think it's invaluable for everyone to hear that. So it's a good place to end our conversation today. There's plenty more to explore on the topic. So there'll be a variety of links to resources we've touched on and other things that are going to be helpful for anyone. They're all available in the show notes. To view them, just click on the episode's info icon in the podcast app on your smartphone or tablet or open the episode in your computer's web browser. You'll find everything you need right there. For more on the FLP programme, you can go to enroll.cgma.org. Thanks again to Clancy, and of course, thank you to yourself for listening today. If you know a friend or colleague that could use this information, feel free to share with your networks. You'll see the sharing buttons on the podcast app. That's it for now. Keep an eye out for the next episode again in 2 weeks as we help keep you on track towards your CGMA. Have a good day.
This podcast is designed to provide illustrative information with respect to the subject matter covered and does not represent an official opinion or position of the AICPA or AICPA.org. It is provided with the understanding that the AICPA and AICPA.org are not engaged in offering legal, accounting, or other professional service. If such advice or expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person should be sought. The AICPA and AICPA.org make no representations, warranties, or guarantees as to, and assume no responsibility for, the content or application of the material contained herein, and especially disclaim all liability for any damages arising out of the use of, reference to, or reliance on such material.